Hawaii tourism is a $20 billion industry. At the 2019 peak, 10.4 million visitors stepped off planes onto an archipelago of 1.4 million residents. 6 tourists for every person who actually lived there. Tourism today represents about 21% of the state's gross domestic product and supports more than 200,000 jobs. The Royal Hawaiian Hotel still charges $700 a night for an oceanfront room. Dole moves billions of pineapples a year. The aloha shirt, the lei. The hula show, the Mai Tai cocktail at sunset. A global aesthetic export with a brand recognition rate few sovereign nations have ever achieved. Behind the brand is a family. The Hawaiian royal dynasty ruled a sovereign kingdom recognized by Britain, by France, by the United States, by Japan, and by dozens of other treaty partners. Their palace had 325 electric incandescent lights installed in 1886, 4 years before the White House had electricity. Their king was the first reigning monarch in human history to circumnavigate the globe. The dynasty is gone. The brand is everywhere, and the same families who manufactured the postcard built the palace into a museum, sold the pineapple, opened the Pink Hotel, and wrote the laws that erased the kingdom. Castle, Cook, Dole, Thurston, Alexander, Baldwin. The men who staffed the Committee of Safety on the 17th of January 1893 were the descendants of the missionaries who had arrived in 1820 to save Hawaiian souls. Their grandsons stole a country. Their great-grandsons branded its memory. Today we trace how a sovereign nation became a souvenir. He was born in Kohala, in the north of the largest island, sometime around 1758. The year matters because Halley's Comet passed over the islands in December of that year, and the prophet astronomer Keaulumoku had foretold that the comet would mark the birth of a killer of chiefs who would unite the archipelago. The reigning paramount Alapa Inui heard the prophecy, traced it to one infant, and ordered the child killed. The chief Naole hid him. The escape route through Kohala by night is preserved in the place names along the way. Hawi, meaning unable to breathe. Kapa'au, the wet blanket they wrapped him in to muffle his cries. Halaula, the scattered blood of pursuers cut down. Their infant survived. He grew up in the high valleys, was trained in the close combat art of lua by the warrior Kekuhapio, and at perhaps 14 years of age, by the legend that became the standard verification of his destiny, he lifted the Naha stone at Hilo. The basalt boulder still sits in front of Hilo Public Library. It weighs an estimated 5,000 pounds. He was 21 years old, give or take, when Captain James Cook anchored at Kealakekua Bay. He was present on the 14th of February, 1779, when Cook, attempting to take the king, Kalaniopuu, hostage in retaliation for a stolen longboat, was struck down at the water's edge. 4 British Marines died with him. Cook's expedition had brought gonorrhea and syphilis and tuberculosis to a population with no acquired resistance. The opening note of a demographic catastrophe that would not finish for another 130 years. 3 battles unified the archipelago. At Mokuohai in July of 1782 on the rough lava south of Kealakekua, Kamehameha defeated his cousin Kawala'o. The sacred twin Kame'eamoku slit Kawala'o's throat with a shark-toothed dagger after a slingstone felled him. At Kapaniwai in 1790, in the green-walled Ao Valley on Maui, Kamehameha's army annihilated the Maui forces of Kalanikupule. The name of the battle means the damming of the waters. The killing was so concentrated that Ao Stream choked with corpses. Decisive at Kapaniwai were 2 cannons called Lopaka and Kalola, captured the previous month from the schooner Fair American after the Olowalu massacre. 2 foreigners had been spared boarding. An English boatswain named John Young held ashore by Kamehameha. A Welsh seaman named Isaac Davis, who had survived face down lashed to a canoe. Both married into Hawaiian aristocracy. Young's granddaughter would one day be Queen Emma. The unification climax came at the Battle of New Wanu in May of 1795. Roughly 10 to 12,000 warriors. 1,200 war canoes, the largest army in Hawaiian history, mounted by the largest fleet ever assembled in Polynesia. Kamehameha put cannon on Diamond Head, split his forces around Punchbowl Crater, and drove the Oahu defenders up Nuuanu Valley to the cliffs of the Pali, a 1,000-foot vertical drop on the windward face of the Ko'olau Mountains. The Hawaiian name for what happened next translates as the Leaping Mullet. Hundreds of Oahu warriors were driven over the precipice to their deaths. In 1898, road construction at the base of the Pali uncovered roughly 800 skulls. Kauai's king, Kaumoali, ceded voluntarily as tributary in 1810. The unification was complete. Kamehameha governed under the kapu system, the kapu mo requiring commoners to lie face down in the presence of the highest alii, the ai kapu, the eating taboo, separating men from women at meals and forbidding women pork, banana, coconut and certain fish on penalty of death. He also issued the law for which his name is now most invoked, the Kanawai Mamalaho, the law of the splintered paddle. The story is that as a young chief he had once attacked fishermen who defended themselves by splintering a wooden paddle across his head. Years later, having tracked them down, he forgave them and decreed that the elderly and the child by the roadside must always be safe from harm. That decree, 8,000 years of human civilization later, is Article 9, Section 10 of the Constitution of the State of Hawaii. He died at Kamakahonu, his royal compound at Kailua, Kona, on the 8th of May, 1819. His age was approximately 61. His bones were hidden in the right of Hunakele by the chiefs Hoapili and Ho'olulu, working under torchlight in a cave whose location was deliberately not recorded. The Hawaiian saying that follows him reads, "Only the stars of the heavens know the resting place of Kamehameha." He had unified perhaps 300,000 subjects. Some scholars now estimate the pre-contact population at between 800,000 and 1 million. By the United States Census of 1900, the native Hawaiian population had fallen to 39,656, a collapse, depending on the baseline, of between 80 and 96% in 122 years. His son broke the world he had built. Liholiho took the throne as Kamehameha II, aged 22, with two of his father's senior wives at his ear. Ka'ahumanu, the Queen Regent, the most politically formidable woman in Hawaiian history. Keopuolani, the sacred mother of higher rank than Kamehameha himself. Both wanted the kapu system gone. In November of 1819, 6 months after his father's death, at a feast at Kailua Kona, with the high priest Hiwahewa nodding consent, Liholiho sat down at the women's table and ate. The act was called the Ainoa, the free eating. It destroyed in a single meal a religious system that had organized Hawaiian society for centuries. In the months that followed, hundreds of heiau, the great stone temple platforms, were dismantled. Wooden idols were burned. The traditionalist cousin Kekuakalani led a counter-rebellion at Kuamo'o in December of 1819 and died beside his wife Manono under a swivel gun. 4 months later, on the 30th of March, 1820, the brig Thaddeus anchored off Kauai after 164 days at sea from Boston. On board was the pioneer company of American Calvinists, Hiram Bingham, Asa Thurston. 12 more missionaries and their wives. They had set out to convert a kapu-bound pagan kingdom and found a religious vacuum. The timing was the most consequential coincidence in Hawaiian history. They settled in. They did not leave. Liholiho sailed for England in 1823 aboard the whaler Leil with Queen Kamehameha and a court entourage. They were lodged at the Caledonian Hotel on Adelphi Terrace in London. The entire party contracted measles, likely on a visit to the Royal Military Asylum. Queen Kamehameha died on the 8th of July, 1824. King Liholiho died 6 days later, on the 14th, age approximately 26. He had reigned for 5 years. The bodies came home aboard HMS Blonde under Captain George Anson Byron, cousin of the poet, arriving in Honolulu on the 6th of May, 1825. His brother Kamehameha took the throne as Kamehameha I and reigned 29 years, longer than any other Hawaiian monarch. He gave the kingdom its first constitution in 1840. He gave it universal male suffrage in 1852. He survived the Paulet affair of February 25, 1843, when a British naval officer with a single frigate forced him at gunpoint into a provisional cession of the kingdom. For 5 months, the Union Jack flew over Honolulu until Rear Admiral Richard Thomas restored sovereignty on the 31st of July, 1843. That afternoon at Kauaiahau Church, Kauikeaoli spoke the words that are now the state motto, Wa mauke ea oka aina I ka pono. The sovereignty of the land is preserved in righteousness. The Paulet trauma was the proximate cause of the catastrophe to come. The king's foreign advisers convinced him that Western private titles, fee-simple ownership on the European model, would protect Hawaiian land from any future foreign seizure. The reasoning was that what was registered in a survey ledger could not be confiscated by a passing frigate. He agreed to the redivision. The mechanism was called the Great Mahila. It ran from the 27th of January to the 7th of March, 1848 in the Privy Council chamber. 245 chiefs and konohiki met individually with the king to quit-claim their lands. Approximately 4 million acres were divided into roughly 1 million acres of crown land, 1.5 million acres of government land, and 1.5 million acres for the chiefs. The actual cultivators of the soil, the maka'ainana, the common people, were treated as an afterthought. The Kuleana Act of the 6th of August, 1850, allowed them to claim the small parcels they tilled. The numbers are the indictment. Of approximately 29,221 eligible adult Hawaiian men, only about 8,205 received any land award. 28%. The total acreage they received came to roughly 28,658 acres, less than 1% of the kingdom. House lots were capped at 1/4 acre. Only actively cultivated kalo ground qualified, excluding pasture, gathering forests and fishing rights. Survey fees ran about $1 an acre, months of wages. Filing required English-language affidavits and 2 witnesses by the 14th of February, 1848, a deadline poorly publicised in the remote districts. The missionary Dwight Baldwin had written to William Richards in June of 1847 that, in his words, a common native knows nothing, and they abandon what they know are their rights in thousands of cases. Then came the trapdoor underneath the floor. The Resident Alien Act of the 10th of July, 1850, drafted by Chief Justice William Little Lee while Kamehameha IV, Lot Kapuaiwa, and the missionary Dr. Gerrit Judd were abroad in Europe. The act allowed foreigners to acquire land for free. From that moment, the dispossession pipeline ran on a steady current. Mortgage foreclosures at the legal interest rate of 9%, tax sales for unpaid assessments in a cash economy that Hawaiians had been excluded from, quiet title actions in courts that operated in English. By 1890, White residents, fewer than 5% of the population of the kingdom, owned approximately 75% of all privately held land. The land was already gone before the Queen ever fell. Kamehameha I died on the 15th of December, 1854. His adopted nephew, Alexander Liholiho, took the throne as Kamehameha IV and was the most pointedly anti-American of the dynasty. The reason was a single train ride. On a tour of the United States in 1850, an American railway conductor on the East Coast had ordered him out of the first-class car, mistaking him for a servant because of his complexion. His private journal recorded the moment. "I am disappointed by the Americans. They have no manners, no politeness, not even common civility to a stranger." He returned home, married Emma Rook, granddaughter of John Young the Welshman who had served his great-grandfather. He founded Queen's Hospital by personal door-to-door fundraising. He invited the Anglican Church into the islands as a counterweight to the Calvinists. His son, Prince Albert Kauikeaouli, was born on the 20th of May, 1858. Queen Victoria stood as godmother by proxy. On the 17th of August, 1862, irritated by his 4-year-old son's tantrum, the king doused the boy under a cold water faucet to quiet him. Albert caught a fever within hours. He died on the 27th of August, 1862. Alexander Liholiho never recovered. His asthma worsened. His grief did not lift. He died on the 30th of November, 1863. He was 29 years old. His brother Lot Kapuaiwa took the throne as Kamehameha V. He reigned under a constitution that restored property qualifications for voters and abolished the office of regent. He never married. He produced no heir. On his deathbed, on the 11th of December 1872, his 42nd birthday, he refused to name a successor. He offered the throne to his cousin, Bernice Pauahi Bishop. She declined. He died that afternoon. The House of Kamehameha, founded by the Unifier in 1795, was extinct in 77 years. What followed was an interregnum. William Charles Lunalilo, called the People's King, was elected on the 8th of January 1873, both by popular vote and by the legislature. Tubercular and an alcoholic, he reigned 13 months and died on the 3rd of February 1874. The election that followed produced the Honolulu courthouse riot of February 12th and 13th, 1874. David Kalakaua defeated Queen Emma in the legislature 39-6, and Emma's supporters, believing the foreign-influenced legislature had stolen the result from the rightful queen, stormed the building and beat the legislators. The foreign minister, Charles Reed Bishop, husband of Bernice Pauahi, who had refused the throne, wrote United States Minister Henry Pierce at 4:30 in the afternoon requesting Marines. 150 United States bluejackets came ashore from USS Tuscarora and USS Portsmouth. 70 British Marines came ashore from HMS Tenedos. Representative J.W. Lonoaia died of his injuries. It was the first time United States Marines had landed on Hawaiian soil to settle a Hawaiian political question. It would not be the last. The kingdom's economy at this moment was the second through line. The Reciprocity Treaty of the 30th of January 1875, signed by Kalakaua and Hamilton Fish under President Grant, allowed Hawaiian sugar to enter the United States duty-free. Hawaiian exports rose from $1,839,000 in 1874 to $13,282,000 in 1890, a 722% increase in 16 years. Sugar shipments rose from £24.5 million to over £330 million. Plantations grew from roughly 20 in 1875 to over 80 by 1890. By 1890, 99% of Hawaiian exports went to the United States, and 76% of imports came from there. The kingdom's economy was roaring. The kingdom's people were dying. The native Hawaiian census of 1872 counted 49,944, down from 300,000 at contact. Kamehameha had said the child by the roadside must be safe. By 1872, the child by the roadside in Hawaii had a 1 in 6 chance of even being Hawaiian. David Kalakaua took the throne on the 13th of February 1874. His full name ran to 44 syllables. His motto was Ho'ulu la hui, increase the nation. He proposed 2 answers to the demographic emergency: cultural revival and the recruitment of Asian and Pacific peoples to repopulate the islands. He revived hula, which Ka'ahumanu had banned in 1830 under missionary pressure. 3 days of public hula at his coronation on the 12th of February 1883 so scandalized the missionary establishment that the printer of the program was arrested for obscenity. He commissioned the publication of the 2,108-line Kumalipo creation chant in 1889. He wrote the lyrics to Hawaii Pono, set to music by his Prussian bandmaster Henri Berger, modelled on the Prussian royal anthem. He founded the Hail Nawa Society in 1886 to preserve Hawaiian genealogy. He built Iolani Palace. The cornerstone was laid on the 31st of December 1879. The dedication was on the 27th of December 1882. The final cost was approximately $343,595. The architects Thomas J. Baker, Charles J. Wall, and Isaac Moore created the only American Florentine palace in the world, 140 feet long. 4 corner towers, a throne room veneered in koa, 325 electric incandescent lights installed in 1886 in 104 rooms, powered by a Thomson-Houston dynamo from a new Wanu stream, 4 years before electric lights came on at the White House. He had visited Edison's New York office on the 26th of September 1881, on the return leg of a journey that no monarch in human history had ever attempted. The first circumnavigation of the globe by a reigning sovereign. 281 days from the 20th of January to the 29th of October, 1881. He met Emperor Meiji in Tokyo and proposed an Asian federation against Western imperialism, politely declined. He met King Chulalongkorn in Bangkok, Pope Leo XIII in Rome, Queen Victoria in London, who knighted him Grand Cross of St. Michael and St. George, Bismarck in Berlin, President Chester A. Arthur in Washington. He attended his own coronation, postponed 9 years at a cost of over $50,000, and when the moment came to be crowned, he took the diadem with its great central carbuncle from the hands of Reverend Mackintosh and placed it on his own head because no foreigner present was sacred enough to crown an alii. The Hale oligarchy moved against him in 1887. The Hawaiian League, a secret society of approximately 405 white businessmen, lawyers, planters, and missionary descendants, with the lawyer Lorin A. Thurston as lead organizer, paired with the paramilitary Honolulu Rifles under Colonel Volney Fifth Ashford. The proximate grievance was the opium licensing scandal, in which a Chinese rice planter named Aki had delivered $71,000 in cash through the back door of the palace for a license that went instead to a competitor. The deeper grievance was that the king ruled. On the 6th of July 1887, with the Honolulu Rifles surrounding the palace and a personal threat against the king's life implicit, Kalakaua signed what is universally remembered as the Bayonet Constitution. Thurston himself later called it extra-legal. It had never been ratified by the legislature. It abolished the king's executive authority, made the cabinet rather than the crown the policy-making body, made the king's veto overridable, and required voters for the upper house to own $3,000 in property or earn $600 a year, disenfranchising approximately 75% of native Hawaiian voters at a stroke. American and European resident aliens were granted the franchise without naturalization. Asian residents, including naturalized Chinese and Japanese subjects of the kingdom, were explicitly stripped of the vote. The native counterstrike came 2 years later. On the 30th of July, 1889, before dawn, Robert William Kalanihiapo Wilcox, half Hawaiian, trained at the Italian Military Academy at Turin, led approximately 150 men in red Garibaldian shirts into the palace grounds. Government forces with 3 cannon and snipers in the Kauaiahao Church clock tower, supported by 70 United States Marines from USS Adams, blew apart the palace bungalow with grenades. 7 rebels died, 12 were wounded. Wilcox stood trial for treason and was acquitted by an all-Hawaiian jury. The Bayonet Constitution remained. Kalakaua sailed for San Francisco on the 25th of November 1890 aboard USS Charleston, ostensibly for his health. He suffered a stroke at Elwood Cooper's olive ranch outside Santa Barbara on the 5th of January 1891. Against his physician's advice, he attended a Shriners ceremony 9 days later, sustained by Vin Mariani, the cocaine-laced wine of the period. He died at the Palace Hotel in San Francisco at 25 minutes past 2 in the afternoon on the 20th of January 1891 of Bright's disease and uremia. His last recorded words were captured on an Edison phonograph cylinder. "Tell my people I tried." USS Charleston returned to Honolulu 9 days later, draped in black. The arrival of the ship was the first news the kingdom had of the death of its king. His sister Lili Wakalani took the throne the same afternoon his coffin came ashore. Lydia Liliu Loloku Walania Kamehameha had been born on the 2nd of September 1838. She had married John Owen Dominis, the American-born governor of Oahu, in 1862. She had composed over 160 songs by the time she became queen, including Himele Lahui Hawaii, the kingdom's anthem until Hawaii Pono's replaced it, and Aloha O, written in 1878 at Mauna Wili Ranch, the most recorded Hawaiian song in history. Her husband died 7 months into her reign. Her own account: "It pleased the almighty ruler of nations to take him away from me at precisely the time when I felt that I most needed his counsel." She moved against the Bayonet Constitution. By her count, 6,500 of 9,500 registered voters had signed petitions asking for a new constitution restoring native voting rights and royal executive authority. On Saturday the 14th of January 1893, she summoned her cabinet to Iolani Palace, presented her draft and demanded their counter-signature. They refused. From the palace balcony, she announced to the crowd outside that she was forced to postpone. In postponing, she gave the annexationists the trigger they had been waiting 18 months for. The Committee of Safety assembled the same day. 13 men. The chairman was Henry E. Cooper. The lead lawyer was Lorin A. Thurston, grandson of Asa Thurston of the Pioneer Company. The roster included William O. Smith of missionary descent, William R. Castle, heir to Castle and Cook, Theodore Lansing, John Emmerluth, John A. McCandless, Frederick W. McChesney, Henry Waterhouse, William C. Wilder, Andrew Brown, and the Germans Christel Bolte and Edward Sir. Sanford B. Dole, son of the Reverend Daniel Dole, who had founded Punahou School, was not on the committee but was their consensus presidential nominee. The American instrument on the ground was United States Minister John Levitt Stevens, in Hawaii since September of 1889, openly annexationist. He had asked Secretary Blaine in March of 1892 how far the present minister and naval commander might deviate from established international rules and precedents. On the 1st of February 1893, 2 weeks after the coup, he wrote Secretary Foster the line that would condemn him. The Hawaiian pear is now fully ripe, and this is the golden hour for the United States to pluck it. On Monday afternoon, the 16th of January 1893, at approximately 3 o'clock, 162 United States Marines and bluejackets landed from USS Boston under Captain Gilbert Wiltz, with Gatling guns and a howitzer. They took position at Arian Hall, directly across from Iolani Palace, adjacent to Ali Iolani Hale, the government building. The official cover was the protection of American lives and property. No American lives or property were in danger. The kingdom's marshal, Charles B. Wilson, asked the cabinet for permission to arrest the conspirators and declare martial law. The cabinet refused, fearing collision with Stevens. At approximately 2:30 on Tuesday afternoon, the 17th of January 1893, with only some 50 armed Honolulu rifles in evidence, Henry Cooper read the deposition proclamation from the steps of Ali Iolani Hale. Within hours, before the new government had control of any major building beyond the one they were standing in, Stevens extended diplomatic recognition. The Queen's protest, drafted under duress that afternoon, contains 14 words that would still be doing legal work 100 years later. She wrote that she yielded her authority until such time as the government of the United States shall, upon facts being presented to it, undo the action of its representatives and reinstate me. She did not abdicate. She did not surrender her sovereignty. She filed an appeal with the United States and stopped the clock. 2 years later, the men who had taken the kingdom from her arrested her, tried her, and locked her in her own palace. In late 1894, royalist conspirators, Robert Wilcox and the former Royal Guard Captain Samuel Nowlin among them, smuggled 288 Winchester rifles, 100 pistols, and approximately 30,000 rounds of ammunition from California, cached at Henry Bertelsmann's house near Diamond Head. The plan was to seize Iolani Palace at 1 o'clock in the morning of the 7th of January, 1895. On the evening of the 6th, police serving a search warrant on Bertelsmann's house were fired on. Charles L. Carter, son of the former minister to the United States, was shot 3 times and died. He was the only government fatality. Battles followed at Diamond Head, Mo'iliili, and Manoa over the next 3 days. 6 royalists were killed. Martial law was declared. Wilcox was captured around the 16th. The same day, a search of the Queen's Gardens at Washington Place uncovered a buried weapons cache. She was arrested that afternoon and imprisoned in the upstairs corner bedroom of Iolani Palace for 8 months. The provisional government had condemned 6 royalists to death by firing squad. On the 24th of January, 1895, she was told that her formal abdication, signed in her own handwriting, would commute the death sentences of those 6 men. She signed. Her account, written years later, "For myself, I would have chosen death rather than to have signed it. But it was represented to me that by my signing this paper, all the persons who had been arrested would be immediately released." She signed the document Liliuokalani Dominis, using her dead husband's name. A military commission convened in her former throne room sentenced her on the 27th of February, 1895, to 5 years hard labour and a $5,000 fine, commuted to imprisonment in the palace. In that bedroom, on the 22nd of March, 1895, she composed Ke Aloha o Ka Haku, the Queen's Prayer. She also stitched a 9-panelled crazy quilt with the Kalakaua coat of arms at its centre, the artefact now known as the imprisonment quilt. She was released to Washington Place on the 6th of September, 1895, and granted full pardon on the 6th of October, 1896. If you watched our piece on Mohammad Reza Pahlavi and the tragic fate of his 4 children, you already know what it looks like when a deposed monarch carries the proof of yielded sovereignty across decades. Reza Pahlavi, scattering on his sister Layla's casket at Passy Cemetery in 2001, the handful of Iranian earth his father had bent to gather at the foot of the aircraft stairs at Mehrabad Airport on the 16th of January 1979 and carried into exile for 22 years. What Lily Wokalani had was not soil. It was 14 words, and those 14 words written that afternoon and signed under armed guard would still be doing legal work a century later, in language signed by a sitting United States president on the centennial of her overthrow. The missionaries who had come in 1820 had said they came to save Hawaiian souls. Their grandsons were now keeping the Hawaiian queen prisoner in her own palace at the cost of her crown, on the threat of executing 6 of her people, while their sons ran the company that owned the country. The kingdom itself was not yet annexed. The provisional government had become the Republic of Hawaii on the 4th of July 1894, with Sanford B. Dole as president. The Treaty of Annexation, submitted by the Republic to President Harrison in February of 1893, had been withdrawn by the incoming President Cleveland, who appointed former Congressman James Henderson Blount of Georgia as Paramount Commissioner. The Blount Report, submitted on the 17th of July 1893, ran approximately 1,400 pages and concluded that Stevens had conspired with the Committee of Safety, that the marine landing was decisive and unjustified, that the majority of native Hawaiians supported the Queen, and that the provisional government existed only because of United States military presence. Cleveland's special message to Congress on the 18th of December 1893 called the overthrow an act of war committed with the participation of a diplomatic representative of the United States and without authority of Congress. It is the strongest condemnation of an American intervention ever delivered by a sitting president. The provisional government refused to step down. Cleveland could not force the issue. The Senate's Morgan Report of February of 1894 exonerated the conspirators along party lines. The native Hawaiian counter-mobilization came in the fall of 1897. Hui Aloha, Aina, the Hawaiian Patriotic League, with the men's branch led by James Ke'awiluna Kaulia and the women's by Abigail Kwaihelani Campbell, organized in parallel with Hui Kalai Aina. Between the 11th of September and the 2nd of October 1897, they gathered 21,269 signatures on the QA petitions, the resistance petitions against annexation. Combined with parallel petitions for restoration, the total exceeded 38,000 signatures, more than half of the entire surviving native Hawaiian population. Approximately 95% of adult native Hawaiians. A 4-man delegation, Kaulia, David Kalakaua, John Richardson and William Auld, carried the 556-page document to Washington in December of 1897. Senator George Frisbee Hoare of Massachusetts read it aloud in the Senate on the 9th of December. McKinley's Annexation Treaty needed 60 votes. It could only muster 46. The treaty was dead. The annexationists changed instruments. The Spanish-American War, declared in April of 1898, made Hawaiian harbours strategically urgent. A joint resolution required only a simple majority of both houses, not the 2/3 of the Senate that a treaty needed. The Newlands Resolution passed the House on the 15th of June, 1898, 209 to 91. It passed the Senate on the 6th of July, 42 to 21. McKinley signed it on the 7th of July, 1898. The United States assumed $4 million in Hawaiian debt and took, without compensation, 1,800,000 acres of Crown, government and public lands. The transfer ceremony took place at noon on the 12th of August, 1898, in front of Iolani Palace. President Dole formally surrendered the sovereignty of the Republic. A United States Minister, Harold M. Sewall, received it. The Royal Hawaiian Band's German bandmaster, Captain Henri Berger, who had served the kingdom since 1872, the man Lili Wakalani had called the father of Hawaiian music, watched as several members of the band, unable to play through tears, hurried away from the scene. Berger, understanding, did not stop them. His journal entry that night read in part, "The day is done. Flag is raised. We are all Americans. Pau Hawaii." Princess Kaiulani told the San Francisco Chronicle, "It was bitterer than death to me. It was bad enough to lose the throne, but it was infinitely worse to have the flag go down. The musicians had refused to sign loyalty oaths to the provisional government 5 years earlier. They had been told they would be eating rocks if they refused. They had walked off the job and gone to the Kapalama Rose Garden of Eleanor Kekauohiwaikalani Wright Prendergast and asked her for a song. She wrote Kaulana Napua, the famous children, also called Mele Aipohaku, the stone-eating song. The chorus says, "We are satisfied with the stones, the wondrous food of the land." The song was sung by 10,000 marchers at the centennial of the overthrow on the 17th of January, 1993, on the lawn of the palace where the Queen had been imprisoned. Lili Wakalani lived another 19 years at Washington Place. She died on the 11th of November, 1917. Sanford Dole served as the territory's first governor. Public Law 103-150 was signed by President Bill Clinton on the 23rd of November, 1993, on the centennial of Cleveland's message. The 37 whereas findings of the resolution quote the Queen's protest of the 17th of January, 1893, almost verbatim. They acknowledge that the indigenous Hawaiian people never directly relinquished their claims to inherent sovereignty. The operative clause apologizes to native Hawaiians on behalf of the people of the United States for the overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii with the participation of agents and citizens of the United States and for the deprivation of the rights of native Hawaiians to self-determination. Section 3 of the resolution then explicitly states that nothing in the resolution serves as a settlement of any claim. The United States Supreme Court held in Hawaii versus Office of Hawaiian Affairs in March of 2009 that the resolution creates no legally binding rights. The findings remain federal law. They are unambiguous. The trade in Hawaiianness, by the moment of the apology, was already 100 years old and accelerating. The Royal Hawaiian Hotel, the Pink Palace of the Pacific, was opened on the 1st of February 1927 with a black tie gala for 1,200 guests. The cost was approximately $4 million. The architects were Warren and Wetmore of New York, the firm that had designed Grand Central Terminal. The site was 15 acres leased from the Bishop Estate, the Kamehameha Schools Trust. The 15 acres carried a Hawaiian name, Helumoa, the legendary royal coconut grove planted by Kamehameha I, where Queen Kaahumānu's summer palace had once stood. The hotel was financed by Matson Navigation, Castle and Cook, and the Territorial Hotel Company. Castle and Cook was the firm founded in 1851 by Samuel Castle and Amos Cook, the missionaries who had run the Chief's Children's School where every monarch from Alexander Laiholiho through Lili Wakalani had been taught to write English. The hotel was built on the bones of the kingdom by the firm of the men who had taught the kingdom's children to read. To make Waikiki available for tourism, Waikiki had first to be unmade as Hawaiian. Approximately 85% of present Waikiki had been wetlands. Interconnected Carlo fields, walled fish ponds at Helumoa and Kalia, 3 feeder streams running from the Koalaus to the sea, and royal residences along the shore. The Aloha Canal, dredged from 1921 to 1928 by Walter Dillingham's Hawaiian Dredging Construction Company, 2 miles long, 25 feet deep, 250 feet wide, drained somewhere between 625 and 2,000 acres of those wetlands. By 1924, the agricultural Waikiki was gone. The fish ponds were filled. The taro was paved over. James Drummond Dole, first cousin once removed of the Sanford Dole who had presided over the Republic, born in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts, in 1877, Harvard graduate of 1899, arrived in Honolulu on the 16th of November, 1899, 15 months after his cousin had signed away the kingdom. He founded the Hawaiian Pineapple Company on the 4th of December, 1901. He opened his first cannery in Waiheiawa in 1903. His first year produced 1,893 cases of pineapple. By 1922, he was producing 23 million. In December of that year, he bought approximately 98% of the island of Lanai from the Baldwin brothers for $1,100,000, roughly $29 million in modern terms, and built the largest pineapple plantation on Earth. 16,000 cultivated acres. By the 1930s, Hawaii produced over 80% of the world's pineapple. The Big Five, by the 1930s, acted as agents for 36 of 38 sugar plantations, controlled approximately 96% of sugar production, owned all the major banks, owned Matson Navigation and Inter-Island Steam, owned Hawaiian Electric, owned the insurance industry, owned the Liberty House retail empire, and ran the territory through interlocking Republican directorates until the Democratic Revolution of 1954 finally broke their grip. The plantation system was built on imported labor deliberately segregated by ethnicity. Roughly 46,000 Chinese arrived by 1900, 180,000 Japanese by 1924, 17,500 Portuguese, 125,000 Filipinos by 1946, plus Koreans, Puerto Ricans, Spaniards, Norwegians, and 1,500 Russians brought in 1909 and 1910. Resistance came in waves. The Japanese strike of 1909, 7,000 workers across Oahu. The interracial strike of 1920, 5,000 Japanese and 3,000 Filipino workers under Pablo. Manlapit and Takashi Tsutsumi, 6 months long, 12,020 picketers and family members evicted from plantation housing. Approximately 150 died in the influenza epidemic while displaced. The Hanapepe massacre on Kauai on the 9th of September 1924, 16 Filipino strikers killed and 4 police dead. The 1946 sugar strike, the first truly multi-ethnic action. 28,000 workers, 79 days, finally broke the plantation paternalism. In 1853, native Hawaiians had been 97% of the population. By 1923, they were 16%. The Republic of Hawaii, in 1896, had passed Act 57, ordering that the English language shall be the medium and basis of instruction in all public and private schools. Children were beaten in territorial schools for speaking Olelo Hawaii. The effective ban on the Hawaiian language in education lasted 90 years until 1986. Fluent Hawaiian speakers fell from approximately 37,000 in 1896 to fewer than 2,000 by the 1980s, a near extinction. The reversal came through the Constitutional Convention of 1978, which made Hawaiian an official state language alongside English, established the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and required the teaching of Hawaiian culture and history. The Punana Leo Language Nest preschools opened in 1983. There are now 27 immersion public schools and approximately 24,000 speakers. The voyaging canoe Hokulea, launched on the 8th of March 1975, sailed to Tahiti without instruments in 1976, navigated by the Satawalese master Mau Piai Lug because no living Hawaiian still held the knowledge. Nainoa Thompson trained under him and became the first native Hawaiian since the 14th century to navigate by the stars. The Merry Monarch Festival, named for Kalakaua, was founded in Hilo in 1964. The Bernice Pauahi Bishop Estate today holds approximately 365,000 acres, about 9% of the state of Hawaii, the largest private landowner with an endowment of approximately $15.2 billion. The Royal Hawaiian Hotel still stands. The pink stucco still catches the sun off Waikiki. The dining room still opens at sunrise above the beach. James Dole's pineapple still moves in cans. The aloha shirt still hangs in the closets of mainland Americans who have never set foot in the islands. What the consumer does not know is that the 15 acres beneath the Pink Hotel are still leased from the trust of Bernice Pauahi Bishop, the great-granddaughter of Kamehameha I, the woman who twice refused the throne her cousin Lot offered her on his deathbed. What the consumer does not know is that the firm that built the hotel was the firm of Samuel Castle and Amos Cook, the missionaries who had taught Lily Wakalani to write English in the schoolroom of the chief's children's school in 1845, while she was the small girl who had been adopted into the royal family. What the consumer doesn't know is that the man who put the brand of pineapple on the can was the cousin of the man who had taken the kingdom, and that he landed in Honolulu 15 months after the joint resolution. Kamehameha had said the elderly and the child by the roadside must be safe. The Hawaiian Renaissance brought the language back from under 2,000 speakers in the 1980s to 24,000 today. The Constitutional Convention of 1978 restored Hawaiian as an official state language. Hokulea sailed to Tahiti by the stars. Native Hawaiians today are roughly 21% of the state's population. The kingdom is gone. The descendants are not. The Pink Hotel still stands on Helumoa. The lights of Iolani Palace still come on at night, the same incandescent system that came on 4 years before the lights of the White House. And the flag of the kingdom, the 8 stripes for the 8 major islands, the Union Jack still in the corner from Kamehameha's diplomatic accommodation with the British Navy in 1816, flies from the palace mast every day beside the American flag, lower than it by the regulation distance. Before today, did you know that the pineapple brand in your kitchen and the kingdom on the postcards were destroyed by the same family? We look forward to hearing from you below, and thanks for joining us for another one.